Okay, this is George with Custom Tied Flies and Guide Service, and I'm trying to get the camera right, and it's not cooperating. There we go. So as promised, here I am back with the finish of the flat-bodied dragonfly nymph. Here's one of the bodies that I made last night. See, it's nice and flat. I've tied in my thread, and now I'm going to put the copper wire in. Copper wire goes in underneath and on your side, and you want to make sure that it's tied in right where the bend and the shank come together. Next is your dubbing. The recipe calls for brown rabbit. I did one with the brown rabbit and I didn't like the looks of it, so I decided to switch to buffalo. Taxidermist buddy of mine called me up one day and he says, hey, I got this buffalo cape if you want to come and take a look at it. So I went and looked at it and I thought it was really cool looking. So and I use it for tying a couple of streamers. I got a bead head buffalo streamer. I got a buffalo sculpin, a couple buffalo sculpins. So anyway, you get your dubbing on the thread. You saw me lick my fingers. I use saliva to help the fur stick to the thread. Some folks use wax. I don't really like wax because it gets messy. There's a couple of drier waxes that you can use. Of course, there's beeswax. I got a cake of beeswax from a buddy of mine that has an apiary not far from where I live. He just, gave me a chunk of beeswax. But you can also use surfboard wax. That's a nice dry wax. Mr. Zog's works well. It's got carnauba in it. The thing I like about the Mr. Zog's is the cake is easy to handle, so you can just rub the cake on the thread. But like I said, I don't really use wax that often. Everything has its application. Okay. Put a little half inch in there to hold things down. Swing my cradle over. Then I can put my copper rib on. I counter wrap. Most of my ribs I counter wrap. Got an old pair of wire cutting scissors that I told you about the last time. Okay, next is your furnace colored hackle. And you prepare your hackle the same way you would for any other wet fly. Put the fat end in your non-spool hand and stroke the fibers back till they kind of look like a bug. See that? Little pinch wrap. Get my hackle pliers in there. Camera's kind of in my way. Stroke the fibers back towards the rear of the hook. You just want to take 1 or 2 turns. It's not real heavy. You're suggesting legs. Try to capture as many of those loose fibers as you can. You don't want to go crazy with the thread wraps, but you want to catch as many of those loose fibers as you can. There, the camera went nuts on me. Okay, and then now that you got the legs on, now you're going to finish building the head. Again, back to the dubbing. And this thing is going to sink like a stone. There's lead in the body, and the way I showed you to put the lead on, it's going to invert. There's not exactly a top and a bottom of this bug because it's got no wing pads or anything on it. But this buffalo underfur is very hygroscopic, which means it absorbs water like a sponge, just like rabbit dubbing does. So when it gets wet, it's gonna sink like a stone, which is what you want. All right, get that covered up. Get a couple turns in there in front of the eyes. And then you can start incorporating the eyes into the head. I got to get a better camera stand. I'm using my phone for this. I have a camera that has video capability. It's just out in my truck. They probably make some sort of camera stand for cell phones. If they don't, that'd be a good idea to, you'd probably sell 1 million of them. That's good. That'll probably give me enough to finish. Maybe not. Yeah, I think it will. Yep. I put my head cement on underneath. And I use this is a hat pin. You get a box of them for $2 at Walmart, and then you clip the top off, and then I stuffed it in a turkey quill, and I put the little string on the back of it because I was having a hard time because they're so springy. I was hitting the quill with my finger and it would go flying off my bench, so I put this pearl thing on there so I can see it a little better when it goes flying off my bench. So there you go. There's the flat body dragonfly nymph. Head's a little twisted. There you go. Flat body dragonfly nymph. So this is George with Custom Tied Flies and Guide Service. You can find my Facebook page if you search Custom Tyer. That's CUSTOMTYER. You can also find Fly Tying Basics by George at Custom Tyer 01. That's 01. So, happy tying.